All right, good morning, guys. Welcome back. Hope everyone's doing really well. And we have about 2.5 minutes, and we will get the meeting underway. For now, just get prepared, and we'll be good to go. Hi, Ryan. Good morning. Oh yeah, well, I'm a big time beverage drinker of all kinds, coffee, juice, tea. Back in the day when I would go to cafes and stuff, I would always order like 4 drinks, like coffee, orange juice, iced tea, water. I don't know. I love it. But yeah, I definitely have love for the sparkling water. I like the fizzy aspect. Hey guys, hi Grant, Dimitri, Eloise, Kylie, Connor. Yeah. No, it's gotta enjoy the finer things in life, I guess. Okay, just a few minutes. Hi Nina, Alex. Welcome back. Eddie? Eddie? The cat's running around down there. Well, one of them. Eddie. It's like sitting under my chair. It's kind of funny. Eddie boy, hey, Eddie. There. Ah, too shy. No, want to come here? Eddie? Trying to get in the comments. A little too early for him. It's okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Okay, guys, it's pretty much 9. So once again, let's get things going. Good morning to everybody. Hope your semester is going well so far. Let me say this. I'm continuing to finish the grading on your first essay, and I'm going to make sure to be done with that by this weekend. So I'll be in touch with you probably Friday or Saturday just to notify you that all those grades are finished, and then you can check with me if you want your grade back and your comments for your first essay. Obviously, the next thing that's coming forward for us is next Friday. That's the last day before we have spring break. That's when you're going to have a midterm exam. So I'm also going to distribute the midterm study guide, and I'm going to do that either later tonight or tomorrow morning. So just a couple things to keep in mind over these next few days. Make sure to look at that study guide and kind of start looking at your notes and getting prepared for the exam, and then just be in touch and pay attention to your Canvas notifications over the weekend when I will let you all know that the first essays are graded. So just a few kind of reminders about the schedule. We have our midterm next week on Friday. I'm almost done grading the first essay, and you'll get your study guide so that you can be prepared for the midterm. We have 2 review sessions next week, Monday and Wednesday. So next week, there's no new material. The last essay that we're going to go over is Judith Thompson, which we're speaking about today and Friday. And then next week, it's all review, going over that study guide, getting as many questions answered and things clarified as we can. And then Friday, you'll take your test. And then you'll be on to spring break, and we'll be back after spring break for the second half of the semester. So just if there's ever any questions about anything having to do with the schedule, the topics, or anything else, you're always invited to just let me know in the chat or by email or by whatever means, office hours, etc. Okay, guys, so just making sure we're clear on that. Then in that case, let's just go back to our lectures. Last time we were here, we were talking a lot about the work of Garrett Hardin and his paper, which is called Lifeboat Ethics, the Case Against Helping the Poor. So overall, what he's saying is that we do not have a moral obligation to assist the global poor. He says that he does not like a common metaphor that was then popular with environmentalists, which is that we live on spaceship Earth, and therefore, since it's a common home for all, that we should share the resources and not use, waste, or destroy more than our fair share, either as individuals, institutions, or nations. But he doesn't think this is a proper metaphor, that if it was taken legitimately or seriously, it would lead to self-destructive policies for the sharing of global resources. There's also no sovereign authority over the planet Earth, so the metaphor of the ship, he thinks, is even less accurate, since there's no captain of this spaceship Earth, so to speak. And so after that, he talks about how the better metaphor is the lifeboat metaphor that he gives, which is, okay, imagine each wealthy nation is symbolized by a lifeboat floating in the ocean, and the people that are passengers on those boats represent the citizens of those countries. Suppose that there's an even more numerous group, though, of people who are in the water currently, struggling to even survive in those waters and hoping for help from the people that are within the boats. The people in the water stand for those that are in the third world living in poverty, and he makes it in the example that they're more numerous than what the boat could possibly take on. So he says if you wanted to try and help everybody by bringing them on board, then that would cause the boat to sink, and no one would then have the security of the boat at all. If you let on a limited number and you maximize the capacity of the boat, maybe it won't sink, but it compromises on the safety factor and the safety margin when you don't have excess room. So he thinks we should just not let anybody on this boat, and that's a metaphor, I guess, for we should not be willing to give aid to the third world. After that, he talks about the different rates of reproduction that are seen in the first and third world, basically that there's much more rapid rates of reproduction in the third world for a number of socioeconomic reasons. But this is one thing that drives the problem of global poverty, because you have a lot more people being born in parts of the world where there's not enough wealth or income to care for the burgeoning population. He says, therefore, if we were to assign ourselves the philanthropic obligation today on kind of a one-to-one ratio of donors to recipients, it would not remain one-to-one over, let's say, like an 87-year time period, because that's the rough time period that it takes for a wealthy country's population to double. But in poor nations, it happens much more quickly at about a 35-year rate of doubling. So what started as a one-to-one ratio of donors to recipients, as we stretch out the timeline, becomes much more unsustainable, like 1-4 or even worse. So he thinks that's not possible, therefore, to do. And he mentions after that the so-called tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons is the idea that when we have public resources, they're doomed to fail because of two main factors: that they're overutilized and poorly maintained. He gives an example of an acre of farmland, and he says, imagine this 1 acre were to be made public, then everyone would use it with their farm animals. That means it would be overgrazed, quickly spoiled, and no one would clean up after themselves either, because it's not their private property, and it doesn't reflect poorly on them as a private owner if it does fall into ruin, nor do they lose any kind of investment that they personally made. So private resources don't get overutilized or poorly upkept, but public resources do. I mean, think of like public or private restrooms. I don't know, maybe for the guys at least. I know for a fact that they're very dirty if they're public usually, and like just random public places. Compare that to someone's bathroom at their home. Well, it's because when it's at your home, you have every invested interest in making sure that it's not filthy and that it doesn't reflect poorly on you, the owner. So public resources, he thinks, are just abused and mismanaged and overutilized. Private resources aren't. So we shouldn't be supportive of things like the World Food Bank. That's one thing he's trying to argue there. The World Food Bank is a program that would pool resources from wealthy countries according to what surplus amounts they had, and distribute those resources to poor nations according to their needs in terms of global hunger. It's a humanitarian idea, but he says it's another commons in disguise, because the poor nations would draw from the resources given in the World Food Bank, therefore enlarging their population size artificially through the provision of the aid, but not doing anything to make the system sustainable by weaning themselves off of it and moderating the reproduction rates and stuff like that. So he thinks that although it's a good intent, it's not likely to lead to a good result. And the real beneficiaries of many of these programs, he thinks, are special interests and big businesses. On the one hand, rail and distribution companies that ship the food from point A to B, the administrators that staff the bureaucracies that run these programs. And then he talks about how with permissive immigration laws and so forth, he thinks that that's advocated for by companies that want to have cheap labor or to have low-cost, low-wage workers to do jobs that Americans would not want to do, janitorial work and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, he kind of rests his case there. He says that we can't remake the past. He closes his article with that. We cannot remake the past. He says maybe some of us feel badly that there's these haves and have-nots globally, and maybe it isn't perfectly fair. But he says if you really wanted to be totally fair, then how far are you willing to push that logic? Shouldn't, if we were going to be completely just, return this land to Native and Indigenous Americans? After all, there was no moral transfer of ownership from them to European colonizers and settlers. But he says no one does take seriously the idea of, doing that. So in the end, he says it's overly idealistic and unrealistic to strive for the kind of equity that is argued for in Peter Singer's article. So anyway, that's his position, and now that it's done, I just wanted to summarize it one last time, and all the major points that he made there. There's a couple of things I left out, like he talks about objections to his views too, and I think that he didn't really do a great job of replying to the various objections. Like one of them is the old Chinese proverb, I guess, if you teach a man, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for one day. If you teach a man how to fish, he'll eat for the rest of his days, basically. So some might argue, why then can't we just give educational and technological assistance so some of these economies can make strides on their own instead of just literal food aid? And I don't know why he finds that to be a weak objection. He just says, oh, it's still going to feed into the overgrowth of the population in the third world. But I don't kind of follow his point there, because you would have thought that in making a movement towards self-sufficiency with that kind of technological and educational assistance, that they would join the ranks of the first world countries. So that's one thing, the whole the Chinese proverb objection that he tries to dismiss. Okay, so anyway, guys, then we're moving on to the last author before we do the midterm, and I've set aside 2 full meetings for this, today and Friday, because there's a lot of interesting and weird examples in this paper. So this is an article by American philosopher Judith Jarvis Thompson. So Judith Thompson is the author. Let me quickly get her dates here. So yeah, Judith Thompson, still alive, born in 1929. So she's been around for a while. She is a distinguished American philosopher. She taught for decades at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And she's very well known for her highly creative and thoughtful essays in the field of ethics. She wrote a famous paper that often is taught in ethics classes where abortion is one of the topics that is studied, and it's called A Defense of Abortion. So like she wrote, that's a famous paper. It has all these kind of interesting thought experiments and hypothetical scenarios. It was written in the same time period, around 1972 or 3, that the Roe versus Wade decision came down. So it was one part of a series of academic papers written by all kinds of ethicists and philosophers trying to make the case that abortion is not immoral and that it should be allowed under, U.S. policies and laws. But that's a totally different topic. This essay has nothing to do with that, but it is about ethics. The problem, and the essay is called The Trolley Problem. So The Trolley Problem by Judith Thompson, and this paper is from 1985. Okay, so we're going to learn about this so-called trolley problem. What the trolley problem is it's like a kind of a puzzle or a dilemma in ethics. It basically asks us to consider our moral intuitions when it comes to killing versus letting die. And what the scenarios given in the article show us is that we have kind of confused intuitions about killing and letting die. Depending on the kind of scenario that's presented to us, we will say on the one hand that it's wrong for a person to kill one to save a greater number. But when we vary certain features of the case, a different case can elicit a different intuition that it actually is permissible to do that. So we're going to have to work through this essay. There's a lot of details, so let's just jump into it. One last thing, Thompson and her style of writing. She's famously known for highly creative thought experiments and hypothetical scenarios. So, to anybody who finds that interesting, nice, or to those that find it frustrating, sorry, but that's just the nature of the study of philosophy. So I need you to imagine a little hypothetical scenario having to do with a trolley that's a runaway trolley. So I'm going to show you some little pictures that I'm going to draw to help get your mind wrapped around this argument and this concept. So, okay, we have a trolley. Here's the trolley. And the trolley is speeding straight forward on a track. Here's a driver of the trolley in the trolley. Now, we got a problem though, because as this trolley turns the corner on the track, lo and behold, there are 5 people on the track. 5 people there. That's not good, because the trolley on its current path and trajectory is going to smash right into the 5 people and kill all of them. So you'd like to have this trolley driver hit the brakes and stop it before it goes over there. But the problem is that the brakes have malfunctioned, and therefore he's not able to stop the forward velocity of the trolley. So it looks like these people are doomed. But wait, there's one thing that the trolley driver actually can do. Okay, so here's his little steering wheel thing. There's a diversion of the track. There's a fork in the road, basically. And another stretch of the track goes off that way. Now he has access to this switch. And if he flips it, it takes the trolley away from the initial track and it diverts it to the tangent line. So you'd like to switch tracks, right? And that way we don't hit 5 and we go in the opposite or different direction. It's a nice option, but there is still just one issue. There's one guy over here on that side of the track. One, okay? Now, he can't stop the trolley. Nothing can be done to stop the trolley. It's there's no option for that. It's just too late. The trolley's already headed towards these people. And so the only thing that he can do is either allow the trolley to continue on its already set path and hit and kill 5, or he could flip that switch. And if he does that, it won't hit 5, but it will still hit 1 person and kill a 1. Okay? Now, this scenario is presented to not just you, not just this class, but literally to like thousands and thousands of survey participants in university and research settings around the world. It's used as a kind of gauge of a person's moral intuitions. So you're not the first person at all to hear this question being asked, but I'm going to ask it. What do you think? Would it be wrong or would it not be wrong for this man to flip the switch so that it averts the death of 5 and instead it does kill 1? That's the question. So if the man who's the trolley driver flips that switch, do you guys think that that would be okay or not okay? Because, again, the trolley's a runaway trolley. It's bound to hit and kill people. The only question is how many. So if he flips the switch to divert it from the more populated track, do you think that is going to be morally okay? And Ryan, you say if he has no choice, then what is he going to do? Well, you frame it as a question, a rhetorical question. I guess what you're implying with that statement is that it's not wrong. And let me tell you, you're in good company. Don't be nervous or whatever, because that's the universal reaction of almost everybody. I noticed that I didn't see a lot of you guys snap up to give me your own judgment, but I hope that there's not too many of you that are thinking it, overthinking it, because, you know, it's sad that anyone gets hit by a trolley. Nobody wants that to happen. But given the example, there's no way to prevent all, there's no way to secure all people's lives. It's like, in this case, someone's going to die. It's just how many. So it's hard to justify any intuition that says, no, it's not okay for him to flip the switch, because that would lead towards the greater death and destruction. So if your goal is to minimize the loss of human life, and you would think that that's a totally reasonable and moral outlook, then diversion of the track seems like it's just not morally blameworthy at all. It's done in the effort to prevent the larger loss of life. And so basically, when this survey question is given to people, it's like, it's very high, like in the 90s and stuff, that everyone says, that's okay, that's not wrong. It's morally permissible, in other words, for him to flip this switch, divert it to the 1. Okay, but we are not done yet. The trolley problem is not just this one example. It is the comparison of the reaction that audiences have to 2 examples. One of them is the trolley driver, and the other is the transplant scenario. So this is, let's call this scenario trolley driver. We have to now compare this scenario with transplant. Now, look, I know some of you are probably there like thinking, well, come on, why can't they just get up and walk off the track? Or whatever. Well, I don't know. And there's no answer to that. This is a hypothetical scenario. We have to just hold certain features fixed. It's not to be extra realistic in a way, because we just want to study the moral intuitions that you have. So never mind the fact that, you might be trying to dream up like ways that they could be all saved or something, or maybe we can get this trolley to somehow like blow up, or I don't know, but nothing aside from the features given in the example are like allowed by the argument. Okay, so transplant scenario. We've actually talked about this transplant scenario before, if you remember. I mentioned it briefly in discussing utilitarian ethics, and it's given as kind of like a counterexample to utilitarianism that shows that some might find fault with it. If you can recall, the case is that there's 5 people. Here they are. PG. So I've just drawn the little stick figures there to represent 5 people. And in the transplant scenario, these are 5 people who are all sick with different types of organ failure. So like one person maybe needs, sorry Peachy, can I just move you here? Good girl. One of them needs like a new heart transplant. One of them needs a kidney, lung, other kidney, I don't know, liver. And so they all need these vital organs. And in each case, if they don't receive them from some kind of transplant donor, they'll die in a short period of time. So suppose that we have this doctor guy. There's the doctor. I just try to give him a little medical fit. And he wants to find them their organs, but there's no such person. Then all of a sudden, off the street, in walks a young, healthy person like you. And this young, healthy person has no real medical problems. They're just going to the doctor for a normal, regular, routine physical. And as he's, looking at that young, healthy person's medical information over here, he notices, I skipped one detail. Okay, these guys all have the same highly rare blood type. Say that it's called XXX blood. And he's looking for a donor somewhere in the donor lists. But since this is a rare blood type, he can't seem to find any suitable donor with a match. How is it that 5 random people all have the same highly rare blood type? It's a coincidence. It's a coincidence, but that's how it is. So he's trying to find some kind of donor that has the match, but he can't. So he's preparing to tell them, I'm sorry guys, but there's nothing I can do for you. And it's really tragic, but I regret to tell you that I can't find a donor. But anyway, right at that moment, this young guy came in, and it's like he sees his medical chart, and what do you think he notices about this person? Well, maybe you can, if you're a careful student of like film or novels, etc., you probably know where the next plot point is. This guy actually does have what? The XXX very rare blood type. So they all need different vital organs. Therefore, if you had even one donor match, that one person's organs could be used for all 5 cases and save all the 5 lives with the one person's parts. So this doctor, let's say, notices that he has the matching blood type. Maybe he even asks him, hey, I have a strange question. It's weird, it's random, but I'm going to throw it out there at you just to see what you say. We got 5 guys in the other ward, and they all need organ transplants, and it just turns out by some strange chance that they all have the same very rare blood type. I'm trying to find a match to that donor or for those patients with the same blood type, and I couldn't find anybody, but then you walked in, sir, just, like almost divine intervention, and lo and behold, you have that matching blood type. So I'm just going to ask you point blank, what do you think? Would it be okay with you if I were to just take all the organs from your body, spin them off into these other 5 people and save their lives with your organs? Now, I know, just to be honest and straightforward, you could never survive that. We're talking about basically gutting you and giving your organs to other people. But even if you won't survive, then they would. And that's 5 people versus you're just 1. So come on, what do you think? Now, if this person's anything like you or me, you already know how he's going to respond. Like, what? No, of course not. I'm never going to allow you to take my organs to save these other people's lives. Not that I don't have, respect for people or that I want them to be hurt or die, but this is my life. I have every right to my body parts. And so, no, I refuse to that proposition. So here's my question for you. And again, I would hope or think that it's probably just intuitively obvious, but what do you think? Would it be okay or not okay for the doctor then to just murder him, take the organs away by force, and then just give them to the 5 people so he could save their lives. Would that be okay or not okay? Is that morally permissible or morally impermissible? In this transplant scenario, that's the question now. So, simply stated, is that okay? Not okay. Yeah, right. It's exactly not okay. And I would think probably anyone would just have that common sense moral intuition. It's not okay for this to be done. But now the trolley problem starts to kind of come into focus. Here's the problem. The problem is just this simple question. Why and for what reason do almost everyone who's surveyed on this topic say that this is okay to do, diverting the trolley from one track to the other to prevent the larger loss of life? Why is that thought to be okay, but not this? And here is why that seems somewhat puzzling to some. Because if you look at the 2 cases, beneath the differences, obviously, in the cases, there are some structural similarities. What are the similarities? Well, in both cases, you've got 5 people who are at imminent risk of death, and you have one person who, if they intervene into the situation in a certain way, that will prevent the death of those 5 and instead lead to the death of one. In the case of our trolley driver, it's the flipping of this switch, which would transfer the threat from 5 to 1. And when that is done, everyone seems to say, well, that's okay, that's not wrong. But over here, we have 5 people at imminent risk of death. And if this man intervenes into the situation and takes an action, it will prevent their 5 deaths and lead to the death of 1. But everyone says this is wrong, and people say this is not wrong. So here's the trolley problem. It's a question. The trolley problem is this question. Why do most people who are surveyed judge and react by saying that this type of action is okay and this isn't? That is the trolley problem. So just know that, because sometimes when I give a test question or something about this trolley problem and I ask, what's the trolley problem? People will just say, hey, a trolley's out of control. Is it okay to flip the switch? That's not it. That's half of it. That's not even half of it. I mean, you have to present both cases, then you have to speak to how different the reactions are from audiences about the 2 cases, and then you would pose the question, which is just the problem. Why, though, do most people say that this is all right and not this? Okay. Now, let me try and explain to you how there have been some attempted solutions to the problem with which Judith Thompson doesn't think are the accurate or correct solutions. Okay, so prior to Judith Thompson, there was another mid-century American philosopher woman named Philippa Foot. And actually, Philippa Foot is the first one to discuss the trolley problem like 20 or 30 years before Thompson did. So Thompson is kind of in the 80s here, talking about a trolley problem essay that was originally discussed by another woman American author from just a generation before her named Philippa Foot. Philippa Foot thought she solved the problem, and Thompson discusses Foot's solution, and she says, I don't actually think Philippa Foot did solve the problem, and here's why. So let me try and explain to you the solution of Mrs. Philippa Foot. It's a very interesting name. I mean, I can never remember how to spell it. I have to always look at it, but it's... So this is like, she's referring to this other author who's also talked about the trolley problem. Ryan, the scenario is to compare the moral intuitions that people have about both cases, yes. So the trolley problem involves a juxtaposition of 2 scenarios. There's really 2 scenarios. There's trolley driver, there's transplant, and you're supposed to just sort of walk the reader through the cases, and then you would mention how almost universally the audiences that are surveyed react differently to the 2 cases, saying this is not wrong and this is. And the problem then is just to try and explain the basis for why people have the different reactions. It's a question, why? Why are people saying this is not wrong and this is? If we could answer that question, we would solve the so-called trolley problem. But anyway, Philippa Foot thought she had solved it. So let me try and explain Foot's attempted solution, and then we're going to show how Thompson tries to deconstruct it so that it doesn't really actually help. Oh, yeah, no problem, Ryan. So let's talk about Foot's solution. Okay, so by the way, this trolley problem thing, for some reason I've noticed it has a little bit of pop cultural interest. You know, if anyone's ever watched the show The Good Place, it's a popular sitcom. They had a whole episode dedicated to going through trolley problem scenarios with the main character, Chidi, and what's his name, Ted Danson and stuff. That whole show, in a way, is kind of like interesting for people that are fans of philosophy and ethics, because I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but this is like a well-known NBC show. It's also got, I think, episodes on Netflix now. But in the show, the main character is like a moral philosopher. That's this guy Chidi, and so they talk a lot about, you know, Kant, Mill, Trolley Problem, all kinds of little interesting academic things like that. But I digress. I've also noticed that there's a whole world of memes about the trolley problem that are hilarious, at least to me, or people, I don't know, they have like a little bit of a kind of more ironic or dark sense of humor. Yeah, you can find the episode about trolley problem, and that's sort of a fun way to have a little bit of context to these lectures on this essay. Yeah, there's memes. There's trolley problem memes. Very funny. I follow this group on Facebook, and there's daily memes from them, and they're all just a million different spin-offs of the trolley problem example. We're going to get to a few different versions of it ourselves in the essays here. But anyway, continuing on, Philippa Foot's solution. What is that? Okay, so she says this is how you can sort of solve the problem. The solution comes into view, she thinks, when you consider here are two true moral principles. One of them, there's an episode of Rick and Morty where Jerry goes to the alien hospital. Well, so it's kind of like the transplant case. Well, I guess, you know, there's definitely going to be a few examples of that as well in like film and media. Well, Foot's solution involves the statement of two moral principles that she thinks are obvious to most people. The first one is this: it is worse to kill 5 than to kill 1. Okay, so when you think of the act of killing, it's a terrible and a bad thing to do, no matter what. Even, of course, killing one person is a terrible thing. But the numbers, I guess, matter. And if a person was killing 5, that's obviously much worse than just killing 1. So, if, you know, no one wants anyone to be killed. But if you had to choose, you'd say killing 5 is a lot worse than if 1 was. On the other hand, another principle Foot suggests is this: it is worse to kill 1 than to let 5 die. Just make sure that doesn't look like the letter S to you. Sorry. Okay, so the second statement is that it is worse to kill 1 person than to allow 5 to die. And so the thought here is that killing is so bad, like if someone dies by your hand, by your action, that is even worse than not getting involved in a situation and allowing whatever's already happening to kill 5 people. So between letting 5 people die by not assisting them versus actually killing 1, it would be worse to take action to kill a person than to just allow people to die from whatever they already are suffering from. So if these two principles are true, Foot thinks that solves the problem, because she believes that this exposes that our trolley driver and the transplant surgeon have different choice situations that they are facing. So let's ask about driver's choice, trolley driver's choice. What's the choice of the trolley driver? Well, if he continues on his current trajectory in the example, then he's going to be the person driving this trolley into 5 folks and killing 5, which is bad. If he flips the switch, though, and goes on the other stretch of the track, he still kills a person, but he just kills 1. So it seems, according to Foot, that what people are tracking when they say he's not doing anything wrong is that he's just trying to avoid doing the worst thing. If he doesn't flip the switch, he'll end up being responsible for a greater death toll. But if he flips that switch, he's responsible for a much smaller number of dead people, and therefore they're both bad things, but you have a bad set of options. You should go for the thing that's less worse, you know? So all he's trying to do is do the thing that's not as bad. Just kill 1 instead of 5. And when he hits the trolley switch, that's what he ends up doing. But take the case of the transplant surgeon. What is his choice? So clearly, if he kills that 1 healthy young person to save the other 5, he's the reason the 1 person died. And in that case, he certainly is the killer of 1. But suppose that he does not kill the 1 and the other 5 people die. Well, in that case, how did they die? Is it because he killed them? So what's his choice? Is his choice between kill 1 or kill 5? Or is the choice of the surgeon between kill one or just let 5 people die? Let me know how you would phrase the choice situation of the surgeon. It's what versus what. It's, well, I've already helped you with one part of that. One of his options is kill that one person. And if he chooses not to do that, then what's the alternative? Is it killing the other 5 or what? Just making sure you can formulate this one time in the chat. So let me see. That's right, Ryan. The choice of our surgeon is killing one or letting 5 die. And according to Philippa Foot, if you kill a person, that is way worse than letting 5 people die. So by killing one, he would be doing the worst thing. And in the other case, by diverting the track, he'd be doing the better thing, because his choice is not between killing one and letting 5 die, since if he hits the 5, he's the direct cause of their death. And the surgeon, though, faces a different choice, because in case the 5 die, they don't die due to him. They die due to existing natural causes or whatever. And on the other hand, if the one person dies, they die because the surgeon is a killer. So maybe this explains away why people react differently. They react to say that it's okay with the case of the driver because hitting 5 is worse than hitting 1. But they react by saying that the surgeon is doing the wrong thing if they operate, because it's worse to kill a person than to just stand back and allow people to die. So does this solve the trolley problem? Well, at least at first it looks like it might. But Judith Thompson says to you right now, sorry, but no. She snatches that solution away and she says, actually, it's still, the trolley problem remains. This has not solved it. And the way that she tries to explain how this solution doesn't work is by slightly modifying the original trolley driver example just a bit. Sorry. So we now have to learn why Miss Judith Thompson does not think that Foot's solution has actually fully resolved the problem. So here's the new version of trolley driver, or, well, it's not trolley driver anymore, a new version of the trolley case that shows that the problem kind of has been brought back from the dead. This new version of the trolley case she calls bystander at the switch. Bystander at the switch. So it's again a case involving this runaway trolley. All right. And the trolley, again, is on a track headed currently towards 5. I know they're a little distressed. There is once again a fork in the road over here where there lies one person. And now in this version of the case, though, a little different. The driver is incapacitated, passed out. So he's unconscious, and no one else has access to the cabin that he's in. So he's not able to flip that switch that could divert the trolley from the larger group to the smaller. So it looks like now in this version, nothing can be done, right? But hold on, there actually is something. See, standing by is a bystander who's just taking a nice stroll, walking around near the trolley track area, and he notices that there is a switch, remote switch. And what the switch, is clearly marked and labeled, and it just says emergency override trolley track switch, flip in case you need to divert trolley from track A to B. Okay, now let's just assume, I know these are complex conditions of a hypothetical scenario, but let's just assume that he's fully aware of the functioning of the switch and he is present on the scene, so he's able to take an action of flipping it if he wishes. Now, this is a bystander. He's not on the trolley, he's not the driver of the trolley, but he's standing by. And he has this opportunity to flip the switch, which would again lead to the same result, that the trolley will not hit 5 and it will instead hit 1 and lead to the lesser death toll. So now the question is given to audiences yet again in this new version of the trolley case. Would it be okay or not okay for our bystander, though, to flip the switch? And I don't know if you have any intuitive reaction to that. Does it change the way you feel about it? Do you feel like because it's a bystander, now it's not okay? Or is this just not making any difference because it's the same thing, basically, preventing more people from dying? Yeah, and so Dimitri, you judge that it's still okay. And once again, you're in good company, because if you watch, and I'm going to maybe try to send you guys some video of like actual lectures at Yale, where one of the editors of our book talks about the trolley problem to like a class. and she's polling this giant, auditorium-sized class at Yale with like hundreds of students. And that's just one example where you see on a displayed like monitor the bar graphs that show the percentiles of people who react by saying it's okay or not okay. And almost everybody, they're like not fazed by this change to the scenario. People say it was okay to flip the switch when it was the driver, and people basically have the same response in the case of the bystander. So it doesn't seem to make a difference to people whether it's this bystander or the driver. The bottom line people seem to have is that the trolley's going to hit people no matter what. And if it's going to hit people, then anything anyone could do to cause it to just hit fewer is okay to do, right? Now, if this is still okay, though, with bystander, it destroys Foot's solution, okay? Because here's the deal. Take the bystander's choice instead of the driver's choice. If this bystander flips the switch, then I guess we could say he took an action which caused the death of that one person. And so in that case, he would be the direct cause of him getting hit by the trolley, and I guess he would then kill the one. But if he doesn't touch this switch and he says, you know what, I'm not going to get involved in this situation at all, I'm just going to keep walking, then the trolley will hit 5 people. But would we say he's the killer of those 5 people? No. I mean, he's not even driving the trolley. He's not even present on the scene. So if he doesn't hit the switch, he's letting the trolley continue, and just that would let 5 people die, right? So his choice now looks like it's a choice between kill 1 or let 5 die. But now this choice is parallel to the choice of the transplant surgeon. Because remember, as we said just now, that for the transplant surgeon, he may either kill 1 and take those organs to save the 5, or decline to do that, and in that case 5 die, but not by his hand, and it's therefore letting 5 die instead of killing 5. We thought before that the explanation that could explain the different reactions that audiences had was because in the driver case, it's kill 1 or kill 5. And in the transplant case, it's kill 1 or let 5 die. But now we have restored symmetry between the 2 examples. Now, if we compare bystander to transplant, both of them face the choice of kill 1 or let 5 die. And yet, although the choice situation seems similar, people still think that it's okay for this to happen, but not okay, of course, for the transplant surgeon to operate on that one innocent victim. So the real trolley problem, according to Thompson, is this question specifically. She replaces driver with bystander, and her question is just this to you and me and everyone else. Why do most people say that it is okay for the bystander to hit this switch and intervene, but not okay for the transplant surgeon to kill the 1 to save the 5? What's the reason that people say it's okay for this to happen and not for the transplant scenario to go forward? So that's the real puzzle that she thinks we have to still solve. Now, just seeing what I want to talk about next on this essay. So there's a variety of attempted solutions. The first one that we talked about here was the one from Philippa Foot, which she tries to make short work of by saying, if we make simply a slight adjustment to the original trolley case, the dilemma reappears, and we're still left with a question to explain the divergent moral reactions of the survey audience. Well, here is perhaps a better solution. She tries another attempt, but she's also going to show that ultimately this second attempt doesn't quite solve the problem either. So let's see. What about, she calls it the Kantian solution, Kant's solution. Obviously, Immanuel Kant himself lived in a time before there were even trains, but he has moral principles that some might say could be utilized to explain the confusing, inconsistent, perhaps, reaction that audiences have to the 2 cases. So what is the Kantian solution? The Kantian solution. So you might say this. Well, the reason that the audience has these 2 different reactions is because in one of these 2 cases, bystander and transplant, in one of them, the innocent victim would be used as a means. And in the other one, the person who loses their life instead of 5 is not used as a means. Okay, now remember what that means, that concept, using someone as a means to an end. It means using a person as a thing to manipulate or exploit to achieve some goal that you or other people have, right? And in Kantian ethics, you're never to treat anyone as a means. No human being should ever be treated as a means, but always as an end in itself, okay? And you know that you're treating someone as a means when you involve them in an interaction that they would not consent to. So let's ask this question. Is the victim in transplant used as a means? And on the other hand, is the one victim of the trolley used as a means in the bystander case? Thompson suggests that you might argue the transplant victim is used as a means, but not the guy who's on the opposite side of the track. Why not? Okay, well, she says this could be a test that you can use to determine whether an action involving another person uses that person as a means. Ask yourself this: would the action that you take which involves this person still have met its intended goal if the person had disappeared at the last moment at the point of action? Okay, so imagine this, right? At the last moment, as the trolley, say the bystander hits the switch. So now the trolley is headed straight towards that one person on the other side of the track. Suppose that by some miracle at the last second, this guy on that track was to poof, disappear like abracadabra, or like in the old Warner Brothers cartoons, somehow he slips down into a rabbit hole underneath the track and the trolley goes over him or something. I'm basically asking you to imagine this in your mind, that at the last moment as the trolley's bearing down on him, he somehow disappears from the oncoming path of the trolley, right? Now, if this one unfortunate individual was to somehow pop away from the track at the last second, would we still have saved those 5 lives by diverting the trolley? Answer that in the chat. Just think about it. So if at the last moment our one guy facing the trolley was to just somehow disappear from the track or fall below it, would we still have saved 5 lives because we sent the trolley in the other direction? So would we still have, achieved the whole point and goal of diverting the trolley if the one guy disappeared at the end? It's a yes or no. Would we still have saved 5 lives if this guy disappeared at the last moment? Would the bystander who hit the switch still have saved the 5 lives? Yes, that's correct, Ryan. And so hopefully all you guys can get the picture in your mind of what I'm asking, because you're supposed to think of this. The trolley's coming, boom, the guy disappears, the trolley just goes past, and you still have 5 safe people over here that never got hit by the trolley. So if you think about it then, think of this. That means that no one really wants the one guy to get hit by the trolley. He's just kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time. And what you really want by hitting the switch is simply to send the trolley anywhere else, aside from where the 5 people are. This guy's death is therefore an unintended side effect of trying to get the trolley to just go in a different direction. So although his death is unfortunate and it is foreseeable, it's not the intended goal of the bystander. The bystander would be much happier if there was no person there, because then he could have saved the 5 lives at no human cost, right? So in that way, we might say that although there's one person dying in the bystander case, if he hits the switch, their death is not the objective. And in fact, we would prefer it if they were able to disappear at the last moment so that we would not have to harm anyone. But now compare that to the transplant scenario. Okay, what if at the last moment, as this mad surgeon is about to bring the scalpel down on this person and cut out those organs, what if they were God or somebody, right? Poof, they just disappear off the operating table. So now there's no body there for you to do anything with. If that were to happen, then would the transplant surgeon still be capable of saving the 5 lives? And now you can answer that question. So compare that to the other scenario. Imagine that the one victim disappears at the point of action. Would we still have saved 5 lives in that case? Yes or no? What do you think? Can you imagine this? I mean, it's kind of like science fictional, but think of the scenario. Presto change, the guy's gone right as the guy was going to kill him and take the organs. So could they have still saved the lives of the other 5 if that came to pass? Just waiting for you to give me your answer. Yes, that's right. No. In that case, obviously, the needed organs would not be available. And so you would not be able to convert them to the bodies of the other 5 people. If the one guy disappears, then the source of the life-saving organs is no longer present, and therefore he could not have saved those lives. So it looks like in the case of the surgeon, the guy is used as a means, because like literally we're using his body parts as a means to the safety and security of the other 5 people. So in that case, we can't say his death is just an unintended side consequence of trying to save the other 5 people. No, in this case, his death is like an essential element of the life-saving plan that involves taking his organs. So maybe then we can argue that Kant has solved the problem. The reason that it's wrong in everyone's mind for the surgeon to act is because he would use the victim as a means. And the reason that nobody seems to think, or very few people think, that it's wrong for the bystander to act is because though he would take an action that would lead to one person's death, that one person's death is kind of not the intended outcome. And if the person wasn't present at the last moment, we would still have taken action that would have saved 5 lives. So his death is not like an essential ingredient in getting that trolley away from 5 people. That looks like it's a possible solution, but Thompson says actually not so fast. Once again, she snatches the solution right away from us at the last moment. So what we're going to talk about on Friday then, let me close this discussion of the essay, is how she tries to show that the Kantian solution also doesn't work. And then we will talk about what her own solution actually is. So finally at the end she says, now I'm going to tell you the real solution to the trolley problem, the one that has been overlooked or not stated by others. So Thompson thinks she's finally got to the bottom of why we have these different reactions, but we still haven't learned her answer yet. We heard Foote's attempted solution, which she dismisses for those reasons. We've heard about Kant's solution, and I'm going to talk to you on Friday about how she finds fault with it. And then we're going to finally learn about her solution, but there's a couple of additional examples that are needed before we get there. So do read the Trolley Problem essay if you haven't already. You can check out some of the fun memes or other pop cultural references to the examples on the internet as well. So I guess for now, with only a minute or so left, I'll let you guys go. Let me know if you're okay, and if so, then I guess I'll close the stream for now. All right, great. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everybody. Remember, like I said, I'm going to send off the study guide for the upcoming midterm exam in the next day or so, and then over the weekend, I'll be in touch with you guys to let you know about your grades for the first essay. All right, then. Have a great one, and until next time, I'll see you guys soon. All right, bye.